Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay. Well, I hope while you're enjoying the tea and coffee and the snacks, we are able to continue the sharing for this stage, which is really how does the future look like and how we educators, policymakers, and technology people should think about it and prepare our system so that we can really help preparing our children's generation to be very ready. So I'm Yao Zhang, founder and CEO of Roboterra. It's a robotics education company based in Silicon Valley. So far, we're in several countries already. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But so my topic today is how AI and robotics will reshape education. And I actually do have an agenda here. I listed it out loud and clear here. Is, we believe we have to prepare our children to work with robots and AI, not against them. So that's the stance I have here with me. So it's interesting that, in Kyle's talk, he asked a lot of questions already, right? So what are the jobs in the future, 2030? And also the theme for our conference is also asking that question. And he actually showed a lot of good examples. So while I was there in his talk, I just deleted several slides because I have the same question. So what I want to share with you is actually from another perspective, looking at 2030. So before I do that, I want to do a little survey. Interactive, right? So how many of you here are teachers? Okay, thank you. About 1/4 here. How many of you are policymakers? Administrators? Okay, very few. Oh, okay. And from business? Great. And how many of you are parents? Great, yes. So, so given that we all know some 15, 16 years old in our life, right? They are today basically the first year in high schools, the high schoolers. So 2030 literally means for them when they are, about like the age of many of us here, right? I mean, in the late 20s, early 30s, they will be doing the jobs, carrying the society then. So my perspective I want to look at that time is actually what are the jobs then? What are the jobs? And I want to mention a little bit more of my background so that you understand why I'm asking, those questions. So I was a trained applied economist from Columbia and then has been building companies, first education software and then incorporated hardware side. So I'm more of a data science person on this. And then the technology is always for education because what I believe is that education, just as every one of you, is education is the most important tool for upward mobility and then social development. And I've been, given the honor to serve as a council member for AI and robotics for the Global Future Council in the past 2 years. And the gathering actually each year is right here in Dubai. And I don't know how many of you saw this viral video on YouTube recently, probably like since 3 months ago, the Killer Bee video, the drone that can recognize your face and follow you and then do attack and kill. Yes, so that is one great result from actually the council meeting done by the council member, Berkeley Professor Russell, because we just realized that to actually prepare our public to really understand how does the technologies looks like, what are the potential harms we have to be aware of. So it's literally hired a Hollywood studio, designed that film for spreading the information to encourage discussions. And this I also want to mention, so I've also been advising both the NGSS, of course many of you know in the US, and also the telecommunication ministry in China in actually designing, and in China it's faster, launching the very first applied robotics and AI teacher standard certificate. So indeed, China is just taking very fast steps in designing policy implementation guidelines. So that's my background. So again, before I take that, looking at the jobs perspective. So today, these are the things I want to invite you to join me in discussing, which is look at the fast development of AI and robotics. What's really changing to jobs for the future? And then what are the opportunities and, of course, challenges? and what's really the key challenge we're facing. So, and then is there a solution? So again, the kids today who are 15 years old, when they are in 2030, they live actually in an era looks like this. By then, NASA and many other civilian companies and many other countries too already succeeded in putting humans on Mars. That means there will be telecommunication jobs and transportation management jobs and many, of course, product design jobs and data analytics jobs. That's in the era of interplanetary era. That's an era that none of us have ever lived in before. Just like, many of you hold your phones, right? 10 years ago, that's the first launch of the first iPhone. And then I believe we all believe ourselves are brilliant and smart. But who could have imagined 10 years ago how apps would have influenced our life today? And how even there could be a job which is called product management, PM. That's designing the launching of the many products. So this is really what it means. From here to get there, the technological development, along that, the knowledge spillover effect will create so many new jobs we even couldn't imagine today, because innovations will happen, on all front, microly. It's just you just can't predict. At the same time, as Kai also mentioned, AI, the fast development is generating so much fear. So yes, even there are politicians that are saying countries whoever stand ahead of this will win in the global competition or war. So what is really the future? Again, there can be different scenarios, of course. It can either robots and AI are totally serving humans. Humans became just pleasure-seeking species, or there can be even AI so powerful that they're controlling humans in some way. Which kind of future you want to live in? Or you want your children to live in? None, right? So yes, so we have to, we really have to recognize the fear and understand the hope, and then understand how we can manage the future better. So as the AI Robotics Council member, and then working with the many other policymakers and also tech company CEOs, so we have been really trying to understand what's the trend and risks and opportunities that's all of us are facing. This is actually one example I want to share with you. This is literally from last year, from the council meeting here in Dubai, and that's why I choose those. So again, this is the 20 council members are writing down AI and robotics, how they're going to change every sector: energy, mobility, production, food, healthcare, finance, and of course education is there too. And then what are the risks? What are the obstacles? So the reason I want to show this is that even a council put, literally considered a lot of the scholarly research leaders, thought leaders, policy leaders are put together trying to have a guideline to share with the world of how to think about that. But actually, we even couldn't agree with each other on identifying all the risks and all the opportunities, not to mention actually a guideline for action. So this is really the reality we're in today. So I'm saying it very loud now. How to really prepare our societies to, especially right for our future employment, jobs, and today's school systems, with the challenges of fast development, AI and robotics. There is no answer today. Every country is really still making efforts trying to understand the situation, but there's no answer today. So that's why I'm glad this stage is more like a dialogue. I'm here to actually share with you what I've seen, what are some of the good cases, instead of preaching to you, oh, I have an answer, because there's no answer simply. However, we do know something of this huge and fast exponential trend, which is, and you can have different opinion on this, but I agree with this opinion, which is we are already in an era that big data is a new crude oil. And as many scholars are saying, AI is the electricity. And we humans will either become AI or be controlled by it. So yes, all the tech giants, my neighbors in Silicon Valley, they're all competing, to try to become the platform at this stage. There are, as Caio mentioned as well, AI is being launched in our lives in different types of products, the smart devices. And then there are, thanks to the fast development of computational capacity, as a GPU development, and then algorithmic development, so many applications are developed. That's why we are seeing they are fundamentally shifting and reshaping every sector in our world. And this is the interesting thing, actually, about AI and education, because AI is a bundle of tools, right? A bundle of technology. Data science, data storage, processing, and of course, all the algorithm, deep learning, machine learning, and then deployment, and then with the kinetic structure of robotics has, or in other ways like virtual assistants. So it has many pathways to affect all the different industries. Education is also another underlying important sector that is influencing and interacting and determining the future of every sector as well. So basically, what I want to say here is, while AI is in every sector, so does education. And this is how deeply entrenched they are together. Education also produces the future everyone, right? The future human capital our societies, our world has. So the jobs, while we're seeing all the AI-related jobs are, the demand of it, the payment of it is so much higher than all the other jobs. But again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's impossible to predict all future jobs, just as the exponential graph showed. And here I want to use this training in economics to share with you. So this is the widely referred framework in thinking about technological advancement or growth. So this is a neuroclassic growth model where if we want to know, the result of society development, right? It can be economic development, growth, or social welfare, anything. And then it always has to be a result of actually several types of elements. Capital, which are, the machines, the robots, and then the technologies. And there are, of course, human capital, which is so important. And then where the technological mode of the society is. So this formula, for example, for the big, for last wave of industrial revolution, technological mode will be totally different than today. So today we're in this AI and robotics mode. But this, again, just theoretically and looking at data, is directly determined or a result of human capital. So that's how important all of us here are actually today. Because of our work on education or on human capital for both today and also future society, we are literally deciding where our world is going. But with all the trends, right, I just mentioned. So one question asked at all those conference like this or the Global Future Council, many other stages is, so when robots and AI is doing so much, many jobs, replacing the many existing jobs, especially that's large employment sector, such as construction and driving and all that, what should we do? And I think another way of looking at is this question, is what makes human human when robots and AI are replacing just so many functions that we used to carry? What makes human human? So that's why, glad to see actually even at this forum there are many sessions on looking at how brains work, cognitive sciences, and then the new learning paradigm and all that. Because what makes human human when robots and AI are not just tools but they're becoming smarter and more autonomous and doing more work is the stance humans has to choose. Just like I have a stance today, right, standing here. Before I started my talk, so which is, I believe, is the creativity part of it. So that's why today I want to share, as a technology company in education, we believe our goal, the ultimate products we should have is actually to empower and foster the development of human creativity for while schools, teachers choose to use our technology. And then the goal is that students, through interacting or using the technology, the result is the development of creativity. Then for educators, right, we will have the next step questions, which are how to marry creativity, right? What is creativity? How to marry creativity? So again, instead of giving answers, and then that's a question that you can keep thinking. But again, back to the identifying a solution agenda today. So if things are changing so fast, and even AI is not only reshaping all the sectors, but also reshaping how products are made, right? So what should be the approach to identify an effective solution in this to develop children's creativity? So we actually, in our company, our team, will look at the development of design principles and human creativity. To develop human creativity, we believe the philosophical side of it is a human-centric approach. So while the design paradigm shifted a lot as well in the past, there are emphasis on the user experience side of it, and then that's why from a teacher-centric teaching, we're seeing children centric teaching, children-centric learning, and then there are the new immersion. The trend of immersive learning as well, and then using AI for to provide data feedback for adaptive learning. So in all the trends that the new technologies can bring, the core principle we advocate for is actually human-centric design principle. But what does it mean? What are some of the good cases? And then here I want to be a little bit more specific. So a human-centric design principle for AI, robots, products in education. And then what Roboterra has seen working is, again, yeah, I'll just skip here. This is really just the many pathways that AI and robots can have through the industries and the interaction with education. So the good example is, we want to share is a very interesting and actually today the world's largest robotic competition. And we're going, and this, which is now happening in the US, and I mean many countries in the world now, it's a regional competition, and then in April, there will be the World Championship. So this is just a live competition field. Robots made by teams in 6 weeks, high schoolers, and then there will be a remote control mode, there will be autonomous mode, and then it literally is a sport. And this competition, basically what they provide is actually the same frame, the same controller board, and then some of the motors, and then the remote control board, and then some of the design software. So here, I want to ask you, right? So if you're 16, again, go back if you're 16, and then you have the 16 years old knowledge of physics, and maybe some coding, maybe not, and you're given these things. You're given the thing I just showed, those modules, and then you're asked to design a big robot that can, let's say, can climb, the wall here and then pick up that table, bring back, and then compete who's faster. So, so that kind of robot, you have only 6 weeks. You have to raise the money, pay for the competition, and then solve all the engineering problems, and then work in a team. So how the robot will look like. And then it's a quick video. It's only 6 seconds. This is what a group of 16 years old in the US can do. Video, please.
Started from the bottom, now the whole team here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom.
So who actually, in your mind, designed a better robot than that? Or actually more amazing than that? It is amazing, right? It's amazing. So that is literally what we can see. A good competition, or we call it a good design of learning experience, can actually lead to, for a group of 16, 17 years old, what they can build. And that robot, it's only 6 seconds that we're showing you, right? Drive around, and then identify an object, climb, balance, finish tasks. So the control process of that is actually done by a group of students. Not necessarily everyone has to know how to code. Not necessarily everyone has to know how to engineer, because students in that group, there needs to be strategy officers figuring out how to compete with different robots on the competition court. There needs to be design person and even team CEO to raise the money and all that. So that will be very possibly the upcoming future jobs look like. Some very big challenges are given. Time is very limited, but then there are all sorts of available technologies, hardware, software, microcontrollers, and then motors. And then people have to know how to collaborate and then solve the problem fast. So that's why we really like the design of the competition as actually a very accurate, maybe a simulation of a future work scenario, and many future jobs are there. So again, look at, we're looking from another perspective of this future, singularity growth graph, that if 40 years ago, right, computers used to be like a giant computer in this room for one institution. And then with technological development, it became something so small in our hand, in our bag. So several prediction is that robot, or all the tools that's becoming a robot, right? The AI part of it, the data part of it, the sensory part of it, and then the microcontroller part of it. So they are becoming smaller and smaller, and then can be used by any one of us, agnostic of professions. So this is one belief we have about future jobs. And then, again, I'll skip this. This is just different types of robots that today in the system. But I want to show, so for Roboterra, specifically, we saw the great design principles actually used or indicated in that robotic competition, which is you provide modularized hardware, you provide, and then you design, you expose the students, the learners, an open challenge, and then you guide them to work and learn in groups, and then so that they are having actually a solution-oriented learning experience, actively applying the knowledge they know and then collaborate. So that's how the Roboterra product, I apologize because I brought samples, it's still at the airport. They didn't deliver luggage on time. But so modularized hardware, and then sensors, and then provide a cloud coding platform. So the same hardware, we literally are seeing students of different age groups, they can actually design robots of different shapes and functions. Again, it's a modularization allowed the variety of things students can build. I'm coming back to this slide again, right? In future 15 years, many future type of jobs are going to happen, as this futuristic graph showed us. So in one Roboterra competition, for example, so we actually are actively, leveraging this future, very imagination encouraging scenario, telling students, hey, with the hardware you have, this is a graph, right? This is like a interplanetary route. You have to design a robot that is on Mars and then finish challenges and then go back to Earth. So this is the kind of a Mars mission challenge we design, and then students will work in groups and then finish challenges. So just, again, one example. Another exciting thing I want to mention, actually, Mr. Glenn Lee, his talk is right now at the same time. He's demonstrating how he's using those modularized learning and also open challenge, collaborative learning design to guide students in effective learning. He's a head of a robotics project or a lab of a Hawaii school on a small island. Actually, as he mentioned, one of the poorest regions there. But Mr. Lee, his team actually 2 years ago, they won Roboterra International Global Impact Grant for the work he did. And his teams has been even helping the many new teams of other schools, because Roboterra has been working with schools in more than 30 countries, in more than 700 schools. So his teams literally are coaching and advising students who are working on challenges, started to do something in the robotic competitions through Skype and other things, sharing their experiences. So just so proud that he's now this year's one of the top 10 finalists. So just as a video you saw, right? That's a cool robot, but still that's a very simple robot. These are the robotic Olympic challenge each year. This is DARPA, America's national defense challenge, robotic challenge. Those robots are literally made by the world's best university labs and robotic labs in designing the solutions for challenges such as, rescue mission, right? Rescue mission, or solve the Fukushima nuclear disaster kind of situation. And this is what today's best human engineers can make the robots, right? They have all sorts of issues, but with the right, and that's why today we're here, right? Sharing the cases of designing of modularization principle, allow students to have trial and errors, and then, of course, actively exploring the generation of data about learning and the understanding, and then using the data and combined with AI algorithms to provide that back for better learning feedbacks, so that we hope we actually use this as our expectations we set for ourselves is in the unpredictable future, we today are actually using the right design principles in our work. Whether you're working in policy, design, you're working in product, or teaching, or classrooms, we're actually preparing our children's generation to work with the robots and AI to solve any predictable future problems. So that's Roboterra. And very lastly, I want to share, really identified the challenges, the many questions we have for AI, robotics for education, right? What are the challenges? How to think about it? What's the thinking framework? What are the good cases? So together with Amazon, AWS, and also NVIDIA, the GPU provider, so some of the industry leaders, tech leaders in AI technology. So we're actually offering and launching the world's very first AI and education conference in Silicon Valley, April 21st. And if you're interested, please, we definitely would love to have more educators and policymakers to be speakers. And also a research report is being produced to look at all the players, what are all the technologies today, what is data tracked and everything related to AI and education. So this open directory of all the data will be published through that conference, together with some other conceptual frameworks and also cases for many countries. So if you want your policy to be surveyed, understood, or be published from here, feel free to let me know. Well, I said there's no answers to all the challenges we're mentioning today, but we try to share some more insights. So if you're interested, you can check out Roboterra YouTube. We just shared some predictions of the trend in this field for this year, and we're going to have teachers such as Mr. Glenn Lee and many other interesting schools where we want to feature to share their experiences in as good practices in some of the other webinar series. Together, and this is not futuristic, this is real, it's coming. So here's a robot. I mean, it's not roaming today, but one of the, and I'll end here. This is a telepresence robot. A student literally can make with the modular things we just showed, right? And then the shell is 3D printed. And then they make this, and then they can literally put, for example, in a home or in a classroom, and then this robot can be controlled, can be driven together by a group of anyone from anywhere in the world. So imagine actually today, supposedly, many teachers who couldn't come to this conference, they're in China, India, or the US, and then they can just go to this website, letsrobot.tv, to find this robot, the Roboterra robot, and then view here, and they can talk, actually, and hear us as well. So this is not deep tech, it's here already. But imagine the wide applications it can have on learning, and also on really students' creativity as well. So it's a future we together are facing, and then let's prepare our children for it. Thank you. We'll have questions. any questions or anyone actually want to share, the challenges in your work because of the development of AI and robots? Yes.
When do you think? I'm Olivier. I was wondering, since you're the expert, when do you think robots and AI will be jailers and depressed?
Wow. So interestingly, in the field, the very specific field, the research field of AI and robots. So I mean, AI is an algorithm part of robots, right? So emotions and feelings are a very human term, right? It's neurological activities, but it's biological reactions, and then its effect on our brain. So when, so the step one for a robot to have that is they have to have a understanding of self and identity. So once the discussions became, get into this realm, it actually touches many of the discussions in when does AI become AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. Because today, actually, in the many examples in the talk prior of mine, so what AI can do is actually a single task designed problem situation, like playing chess, or or read a lot of graphs and then identify the error rate, or lung cancer, something like that. But to form an identity, it takes a lot more than today's AI's capability. So the question is actually in basically when will AGI happen, and there are definitely different. Again, even back to all the world's experts on AI, AI robots today. Actually, people disagree. So I was actually in Dubai also in January on the World Government Summit on the AI roundtable. So the founding father of the modern AI algorithms and then natural language processing, many of them are here, and we're literally discussing this question. Like basically, there are disagreements. So I guess the answer is, it's really we don't know when that'll happen, and there are different ways to understand, define that. It depends on how you're going to define it. Yeah.
Hi. Thanks for the talk. You touched on the fact that policy is still and guidelines are still not really being finalized by anyone, and no one's quite sure what to do. What, in your view, I know you said there's no answer, but in your view, what countries are most ahead with setting guidelines for robotics and AI in education or any other sector?
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's actually the effort, right, a group of colleagues are making in working on launching, producing that research report. So again, for example, now, if we look at the talents in AI and robots, so the largest amount of talents are really in US and China, Japan, Korea, UK, and Germany, and France, and Italy. So those countries are also on the frontier. Actually, UAE is also very fast because UAE has the world's very first AI ministry, who is actually actively designing the AI policy initiatives that look at, how education should be prepared for that future, and how the many other sectors, how to think about the employment in those future sectors. So that's why basically, that research work is really try to design a thinking framework, conceptual framework to organize all the questions should be asked, and also to survey all the existing policy initiatives to understand, which countries did what, done what, announced what, and then invested how much money in launching what. What's the timeline milestone? What are we expecting to get in this field? Yeah, so I definitely encourage you. Actually, feel free to subscribe to the newsletters of Curiosity, and so that you can stay tuned for that. But in general, now the front running countries that is pushing very fast. China, the countries I just mentioned. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Talking about the future where we want to promote education for all, how affordable are these robots and machines for low-income communities?
Yes, it's a very important question. So hardware, yes, there are costs associated. However, the cost is actually can be very small. So, so for example, just to help students to understand how a microcontroller board can work together with some sensors. So, you don't really need a 3D printer to actually produce, the structure. Many existing things, household items or school items can be leveraged. And then there are technologies such as basically current, electricity currency, conducing ink can be painted on a piece of special paper, and then that can, allow basically the students to learn and see how sensors work, how some design of the basically circuit works. So there's some cost, but a lot of companies are working in this field to make it more and more affordable as well. I would say now, today, it can be as cheap as $10 per set to have like 9 years old to make some very simple robot, but functional, versatile enough. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
One more question, please.
Okay, yes.
In the context of education, AI and robotics, we're talking a lot about it, but how have you seen a structured approach integrating into the curriculum, into the mainstream curriculums?
That's a great question. I would say, again, given that this trend is happening so fast, and then there isn't really established goal or guidance. So there are many ways how schools, school districts, or even education ministries are approaching to this. For example, again, if we just look examples in the United States, because it's a bottom-up school system, so there are, so some schools are just offering those, robotics as courses, as engineering courses or student labs. Some schools integrated it into their curriculum as a very important part of the curriculum. For example, JAMS is now actively designing future school system with a big portion being human-machine pathway. And very proudly that Roboterra now, we're sharing the knowledge we have in co-designing and then on this bigger integrated, holistic approach of curriculum thinking. And in China and many other countries that we're working in, again, it's either offered as a after-school program, a lab, or competition-oriented activity, or holistic. But what's the best for a school? I think it's still very contextual-based. And one thing I want to point out, whether US or China, or for example, Singapore, Japan, or any European countries that we've been in, the shared challenge, the common challenge is actually, there's simply no teachers. There's no teachers for any schools, rich or resource, inadequate, who knows deeply about software, hardware, coding, everything together, right? Because those who know this are probably working for one of the tech companies. So that's actually a challenge that my team and my colleagues are actively working on. So in our software system I didn't show today, so in the design of our hardware software, we actually really center on this question, which is all schools want to offer this, right, in different ways. But while the schools has no teachers, because teachers' pay is just different, how technology, what kind of role technology should play so that students can still start to enjoy this kind of learning and not to be left out. So again, Roboterra has been doing work in this. There are many other companies are doing work in this as well. So I think for technology companies or education institutions, whoever can offer very good solutions that really address the shortage of teacher in those areas can actually have more effective methods, at least for now, provided to schools. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'll still be around here, and feel free to chat afterwards as well. Thank you. Enjoy the conference.